Let's start. Let's understand what do we mean here by taking an what do we do in Azure administration? What do we do in Azure DevOps? What do we do in Azure automation? Why do we need to actually focus on that way? Okay, it's a very simple, guys. Most of the applications will be following a three-tier architecture, and this is where I wanted to explain why we need the essence of the cloud and why it is so important and everything. And so here, when we talk about an application, the primary things which will be involved is uh, let's create this. So this is a front-end application. This is a business logic application, and there will be a database server. And let me write, this is the front-end servers. Now this is a business logic servers or a backend. We can actually keep it up there. The servers which handle specifically business logic. And what does business logic mean? We will get into that also slowly. And this is related to a database. And so there are users. There will be n number of users who will keep sending requests to this front-end servers. So let's first understand what does the front-end server and business logic servers mean here. These are all the users. So front-end servers is simply when we go into Google and look at sample HTML website GitHub, and we will get a sample HTML websites. So you wanted to you write the HTML in HTML or CSS, and you wanted the web page to look like this, or it to look like this. That's called the front end look and everything of the web page. Now that happens using the HTML coding. The famous, you keep hearing HTML coding, that happens to that. But the data which you're seeing, if you're seeing Nevendu, Ticket, or service mesh, Mishi, deep learning and open source. So when you're seeing this content, right, that is happening inside the web page what we have wrote. So if we have written here Twitter, so you will see that Twitter. You see in here, you're seeing there in the web page Facebook, and it was written here. Now the front end servers will actually will give us the HTML website. So before we giving it, there is two types of websites. One is static website, one is a dynamic website. What is a dynamic website? Let's assume that we are actually having a website where we, from last 10 years, we are purchasing uh, train tickets, flight tickets, bus tickets, and lot of trips entirely from that website. So from the last 10 years, the entire data of your user data is entirely in this database section. It will be in the three-tier architecture. It will be in the database. So when you are going into that website, you are seeing the entire HTML web page. You are seeing the entire content, right? Your content will be actually coming from this database. But before coming to that, the web page, when it is sending back a response to the user, that this is your home page and everything, it will have everyone will have a common template, but as per user data, this data has to change. Like instead of Twitter, it has to show its flight tickets and everything. Okay. The business logic servers are the ones which will go and fetch what are the last 1 year flight tickets which you have purchased. In the last 10 years tickets, you need to only get the last 1 year tickets. Okay. The specific computation, what is happening behind the scenes to get the last 1 year and everything is actually happening in the business logic. And that business logic servers will generate the data and dynamically will populate in that HTML web pages of that front end servers. And this front end servers will send back that response to the users for whatever requests which they have given. What requests usually users will send to servers? So when you're typing google.com or github.com or whatever you're trying to do in the web browser, when you're sending a request, either HTTPS request or an HTTP request to the servers which are hosting there. Okay. And so a lot of requests and that responses back are going to and fro between the machines and the users in this way. But only which are the ones which are sending back the response to the users. The responses are being sent by to the users. Uh, uh, just a second. The request will be received from this front end servers. Sorry, the request will be received to the front end servers only, and the front end servers will send back the response to the users from this. And this is how it works. So what is happening in three-tier architecture? The front end are the ones which are sending the HTML pages, but inside the HTML pages, whatever data which has to be dynamically populated for the specific user, and everything is coming from the database. But what type of data and what specific data you wanted is entirely being reflected out from the business logic service. So the data being fetched out from the database, but front-end servers directly don't contact the database. In fact, the business logic servers are the ones which will go and contact the database and get that and send back that response back to the front-end servers. And they pack it as an HTML page and send back as a response to users. And that is why your web browser is able to load the page and everything. And now where this entirely is coming under Azure DevOps and Azure. Where is cloud is coming here? Okay, now let's try to understand the prime and the prime things in a server point of view is what is reliability. You want your servers to be highly reliable. The next one is availability. You want your servers to be highly available, whether it's a front-end server or a business logic server or a database server, or what servers you are actually holding in the infrastructure to ensure that the users are getting the response back to them. Whatever servers which are running behind the scenes, just not this entire things to ensure the performance and everything, those also should be highly available and highly reliable. And the next one is any issues are there, they should be highly serviceable and they should be so the faster the response in terms of uh, responding to any situations and everything. So this is the prime of the where we actually try to look at. Now let's look at each one. Okay, when I wanted to achieve a reliability, that means I wanted my servers to be relied upon, to be in a situation where they can keep sending the responses whenever the requests are coming back and all that. The business logic servers are also should be in a position to take the requests and everything. The database should be in a position that they are uh, I can trust that my data will never be lost. So in terms of this, in IT, the solution which we come as disaster management or recovery solution. Now, when we're trying to find a disaster recovery solution, what do we look at? We look at first, do we have backups? Uh, do we have backups in place for these machines? Okay, so this even this content will be not visible for you. Okay. Do we have backup solution for each of the servers? And the next one is when do we have the placement of servers uh, are in a in different regions, different locations. Let's keep it that way. Why is even this is a disaster recovery solution? Is because suppose your servers which are there, which are residing in the front end or business or in specific location. What if that entire location goes down? What if this entire location goes down? Then your application is facing an entire downtime. Okay. So when you place your servers in a different location to achieve a disaster recovery. Why? In case one location fails, you can actually ensure there's another secondary location through which you can actually you can run your application. So you are giving a disaster recovery solution. No. Other than this, what else? It comes under the disaster recovery solution. Mm, mm, mm. So at this point of time, I'm thinking this one. So I'll add few more points slowly. Now to make sure my servers are highly available. Uh, so high availability is my key focus. High availability solutions. So under high availability solutions, what would I actually be thinking of? So my servers to be highly available, I want the placement of servers uh, in same location through a different process. In same location. Okay, it's not place. Okay, organizing the placement of servers in the same location. Why do we even have to consider this one? Because I am just not ensuring that one server is there in a front end. Suppose I need to take handle the number of user requests. I need not just 1 server. I might need 20 servers. I might need 200 servers. I might need 1,000 servers. Okay. Why I can actually instead of 20 servers, I can use one server only. If I like assuming like 20 servers of 2 core, V cores and everything, I can actually create a 32 core machine which can provide a better service. But is it in a position to be relied upon, or is it in a position that it's a highly available solution? What if the system goes down? And does it have the capacity to handle that many requests? So it's just not having computation power for the machine. It's just not like your motherboard is having the what do you say the CPU is not having. It's just not that one CPU alone. It was actually focused on just not processor. It also focused on the media. So whatever the medium which is being there in the laptops or the desktops or the servers, does it have the capacity to handle that many requests and everything is also very important. So when you actually focus, so that point of time, it's more sensible to have multiple machines than just one machine, so that you can have more. It can provide more better service in terms of it. It's just like in terms of when you're going to a movie theater, you are having lot of counters, and so everyone will be in a position to handle more the theater will be in a position to provide more number of service in terms of providing the tickets to the people who are actually coming. The same way, the users who are whenever sending the request, the servers will be in a position to handle that many number of requests. So here, to provide high availability, just now the servers, one server, we can actually focus on creating multiple servers in the front end. Okay. Now, yes. Now we actually thought of the same thing in terms of number of servers in front end, in back end, and everywhere. And now let's think about okay. We have placed some more number of servers which can actually provide in database. Sorry, in database we'll not have much of the servers. We'll have only one database and organizing the placement of servers in the same location. The next one which we can actually think of is preference of load balancer. Why? Now, when you have more number of machines, so every machine, every request will go to each machine? No. Which the users will enter a domain name, and the domain name is being mapped to a specific IP address in your web registered address and everything. So when you're having the DNS record, and it actually goes to a specific endpoint. So usually in this kind of cases, we place a load balancer solution, a load balancing solution to achieve what does a load balancer do? It actually just balances the load. The naming convention itself is saying its whole purpose is to uh, balance the load. Now let me write it as a load balancer. And the same thing is create, and I paste it and I use it here. So it's used for balancing the load. And now if we look at so it's ensuring that all the requests which are coming, the load balancer is, as a naming convention, it balance the traffic load. So whatever requests which are coming from there, it will come to a specific endpoint of this load balancer, and this load balancer will send requests to that respective to the machines in an organized manner, so that no server will be end of the day busy, and it will handle the infrastructure is in a position to handle n number of requests simultaneously. Now, similarly, we will set up an internal load balancer which will take requests only from the front end servers. Which will take the request from the front end servers, and now these servers which you see, the business logic servers, which should be in a position of handling will be connecting to the, so this business logic servers will be in a different will be in a one particular network. Yes, entire business logic will be in a specific network, and you wanted this network to be allowed by database servers. So you will allow the data network to this network to be allowed by database, so that the connections which are coming from this servers are reaching out to this database concurrently. So what is the difference between a file and a database? Database is instead of you keeping files in specific location, database is having the capacity to store a structured data or a no SQL data. And along with it, it has the ability to say which connections are allowed, which connections are not allowed. Along with it, it has an ability to provide service to n number of servers at a time. So concurrently means simultaneously. When n number of requests are coming to a database to ask for fetch for specific data or write a specific data, it will be in a position to do that operation. So the placement of preference of your database and preference of what type of load balancer in terms of serving the public internet, and what type of preference you would like to prefer in load balancer to internally service the front end servers. Along with it, preference of your database to handle that many n number of requests, and to handle the load and also simultaneously the data, what type of data you wanted to store and everything. So this comes under high availability solution. So just not actually just organizing the placement of servers in same location, but also preference of a load balancer and preference of database. Along with it, the internal segregation between the servers all comes under the high availability. Now we have serviceability. When we're talking about serviceability, we are talking about reporting system, reporting and operations solution. So what type of solutions are we offering? So do we have monitoring in place? For database, for servers and database. Not just one. So even for all the servers. So let's say for all server types. So it comes as front-end servers, it comes back-end servers, business logic servers, database, it comes identity. So a lot of things will come. So do we have monitoring in place for all the servers? And do we have reporting in place? What is reporting? Configuring alerts. Do we have alert configuration in place for all these servers? Do we have a SOP or TSG? What is SOP? What should you do if you're facing this kind of error? What you should do when you're facing that kind of situation? How are we tracking? Okay. So when we say monitoring, okay, there are different types of monitoring. Are we checking the health of the server? Are we checking the what type of network is coming in and out? Are we checking what how much is the latency of the is the latency is higher for the users, or is it lower? We need a lower latency. Whenever request is sending is been sent by user, has to be immediately a response has to be immediately sent back to the user. This is what you're looking for, your data and everything. So that entire behind the scenes, how fast the things are happening. So in terms of all that, so you have to monitor the latency, and whenever the requests are actually been what do you say requests are failing in specific server, we have to go and troubleshoot why there is an issue. Is it because of a client side issue, or is it because of a server side? So if there is we have to do that post-mortem. We also call that one as troubleshooting. We have to go and troubleshoot what is the errors and everything. That's why we see stack trace and everything as a reporting point of view. So all this which comes under the operation section and everything, and management of the infrastructure. Okay, so management of the infrastructure. And what else? So, so here administration is all about doing and going and performing specific function. It's not about you need to be aware of disaster recovery, how to set up a disaster recovery solution. It's not about you are being an how you can set up a highly available solution. It's not about how you can actually generate reports and monitoring in place and all that. So if actually the architect guy comes and says, please help me with setting up a backup for front-end servers. Please help me with setting up a backup for this app service. Please help me with setting up a backup for MySQL database or a Maria database or a Cosmos database or a Microsoft SQL database. Please help me with placement of the servers in different regions. And whenever I wanted to have a failover, how can I achieve that? So they'll not ask you to how to set up that. They'll ask that, go and please implement. Can you get test the failover? So that comes under site replication. So there is an Azure under Azure Recovery Service Vault. We have a solution called Azure Site Replication. Under the backup solution, we have Recovery Service Vault, or you have backup also, Azure backups and everything. And similarly, in high availability options, when you wanted to organize the placement of your servers, we have availability set, we have availability zone. Now, when you say preference of a load balancer in high availability solution, we have public load balancer, internal load balancer, and in that one session affinity to ensure that application gateway for session affinity and everything, and cookie based affinity and all that. We have traffic manager, we have CDN, we have front door. So we prefer one type of load balancing solution based on if you have customers in across the globe in different regions, in US, in India, in Australia. When you wanted it to be request to be going on different locations as per the location where the users are sending, then you have to set up a traffic manager, a geographical based routing and all that. So you go for preference of what type of load balancer in that what type of configuration. This all comes under the high availability options. Then you actually go with database, preference of database. Now, when we say preference of database, when you say what type of data you're doing and how many people are coming and concurrently accessing this database data and all that, will actually make a lot of major factor in this implementation. And similarly, when we're talking about reporting system, how are we configuring alerts? And what type of alerts are you configuring? Is it an activity log alert, or is it based on logging? So if you find a specific type of logs results, then an alert has to be triggered. Is it a severity 1? Is it a severity 2? Is it a severity 3? And based on your troubleshooting, you will mention in your SOP and TSG saying that if this is what is the issue as per the ticket, then go and perform this so and so actions. Are you documenting that everything? Are you configuring different types of alerts based on health, based on the latency, based on the server side issues, based on from the business logic servers or front end or identity to servers or the database? So you're just seeing an application to run, you're seeing this one, but there might be a supporting servers to ensure that the entire things has been in place. So when users are trying to log into the website, they should have the identity servers like Active Directory servers should be in place. No, sorry, there should be a database specifically to go and fetch the data of that users and everything. Or you might inside your team, whoever is handling the front end business logic database, all this, there might be an Active Directory server which will handle all your internal users data and who has what access and everything. Okay, so all this comes under the Azure administration. So Azure administration is focusing on how you can actually do a specific item. You need to know how to set up a backup solution, how to see if you are good at reporting and reporting and how to perform operations. That is good enough. Okay, in a IT organization, not everyone will be sitting and performing all the operations. Everyone will be capable of performing everything. Okay, everyone will have only each team and organization will be in a position to only handle specific type of things. So it is good as if you are trying to, what is as an Azure administrator, what in your future, how you have to focus. You have to focus in terms of expanding your knowledge in terms of setting up these things. It's all about ensuring that the infrastructure is highly reliable in whatever situation it is. Your you do you have your data replicated, your data in a different region? Why do we have to replicate in different region? What if your database is got corrupted, or what if your database in the primary region has been lost? Okay, is not work right now because of a downtime in one specific region. Then you have to replicate your data in a different region so that you will be in a position to service the customers, or you have your backup option in place. So you replicate your data in different regions simultaneously, because when you create a backup, it happens in a there is an RPO and RTO. Are we aware of it? Recovery time objectives and recovery point objectives. So when we're looking at RTOs and RPOs in terms of backup solution, they have an higher RPOs and RTOs. So that means there is a huge amount of data loss which can incur because of just having backup solution alone. So you need to adapt some simultaneously replicate your data in different regions. And so you mentioned this, we mentioned this one. Now, just not this one. So you also need security. So how can we secure our infrastructure? Suppose you are using VMs. So we in a position to set up VM security? What all secure options are there in terms of VM? So we need to be aware. But in terms of a generalized security point of view, we have to focus on infra security. We have to focus on network security. We have to focus on data storage security or data security, whatever it is. We need to focus on identity security. We need to focus on so these are the securities which we focus. Now in each of this security, if we break down, the VM is there, we have to, do you want to enable bastion service? Do you want to enable is just an internal networks, and what type of security rules you wanted to establish? What is a firewall you have to set in place? When you have different regions, that means you have different networks in different regions, because when servers are in US, the servers are there in India, there are servers in Australia as per Azure. That means you are creating different virtual networks in different regions. And are we connecting that using VNet to VNet pairing, or what? And or do we have an express routing in place when the requests are coming back to the users or from a B2B section? So entire the network configuration is also a different ball game entirely. Okay. And when we're talking about what type of compliance governance we set in place, do we ensure that only the roles which are given are only based on the zero trust point of view? What is zero trust? We don't want, the user should be only given whatever the defined access they have to do perform their functions. So if they have to only be in a position to restart the machines, or perform start and stop of the machines, they should only have to action to perform only that operation. The rest of the things, they should not be in a position to see it, or they should not be in a position to even go and read the data or specific configuration data. They should not be in a position to even perform any operations. Okay. So are we protecting our servers infrastructure from this kind of governance policies, and all that comes under this one? But Azure administration is saying that, okay, if someone is saying that, go and, okay, someone, a network guy, security guy is coming and saying that, configure bastion host for VM. VMs should have bastion host. Now he will go and say to you that configure bastion service for this network, the VMs in this network. Now, do you know how to perform that one? That is called Azure administration. Now, that's what you're learning in Azure administration. And where is Azure DevOps coming here? Azure DevOps is coming entirely in terms of you are trying to host an application and run that application for the users. Now, the developers will work on setting up. So, let's focus on along with it. Where does Azure DevOps come in? So when we're talking about application, no, we are talking about application code. So where do you store your application code? That's where we have to first think of. We store it in code repository management, right? So what security do you have in place for your code security management and code repository? And next one is, how do you deploy, how do you plan to develop your code with your developers? You might not have one single developers team, right? 5 or 3 developers team, or one developer. You might have n number of developers in different locations. Now, how do you plan? So there you actually go with boards or Jira, and here in code repository we actually go with GitHub, Azure repos. Now, how good are you with these tools? And next one, when I designed the application code, I wanted to deploy my application code. Before I deploy it, I have to test it. So, are you good in terms of build? So before I test it, even I have to build it. So do I know how to build a .NET project? Do I know how to build a Java project? Do I know how to build a Python project? Okay, now when we say, do we know how to Dockerize an application? This build into an image, Docker image. Do you know how to test your images, test your code? Do you know how to test your code using Selenium, unit testing, functional testing, integration testing? There are different types. Okay. And when we say after the deployment is done, do you know how to deploy it? Now, before we doing it, there are other solutions like quality check, code coverage tools. Now, when we talk about deployment, do you know the deployment strategies? What type of strategies? Suppose there is a blue-green deployment. There is a rolling upgrade deployment. There is an A/B testing deployment. Okay, there are different strategies the way we wanted to deploy our code. Why? Because suppose let's assume that we are having an application and every hour we generate $1 million business. Now, when you wanted to deploy a code, a new updated version of a front end code or the behind the scenes, whatever the back end code, I don't want my servers to face any downtime because I don't want to lose my $1 million. So I would actually, the client would come up with the expectation that I would don't want any the downtime in my business. I would actually love to see the business is running 24/7 irrespective of the situations. Okay. And that's what is called deployment strategies. So how do you ensure that you can deploy without facing any downtime? Why you wanted to high availability? Okay. And along with it, what type of configurations you have in terms of disaster recovery, and how will you set up a reporting system in place so that whenever someone are completing their work items or their task, how it has been reported, or how is it easy to visualize, check the reports in terms of what are my tasks or what are the team tasks and everything. So that happens through boards and Jira. Okay, everything. So the DevOps is all about handling this. Along with it, the monitoring in place. That's nothing but reporting and operations, everything. So DevOps comes here. So there are many tools which you might have to. So the infrastructure, the next one key thing is after we setting up this, you might have to focus on infrastructure. Okay. Uh, so just let me, it's not sufficient here. Okay, I think I did understand. Fine. Okay. Now, along with this application code, I have to focus on where do I wanted to deploy my infrastructure. Is it in infra? Is it in cloud or on-prem and all, right? So all this is also a very key point. So if I'm going with a cloud, then how do I set up these things? So DevOps is the entire the process. So if you go itself in code repository, the Git itself is a very huge one, or Azure repos, the branching strategy. So in here we talk about how are we configuring our branching strategy. How are we configuring pull request flow? In terms of repository. Yeah. Now, what type of SDLC process we will follow in plan, and how do we set up that entire stuff? Okay, it's good that we are designing on the process. Now, how do you configure that one? Means setting up that Kanban board or the Scrum way of doing it, what terminologies you will use and everything. Now, when you say about build, how will you generate your build? When you're trying, how you wanted to generate your prerequisites, how do you wanted to perform the installation of libraries and prerequisites in the machine wherever the build is happening? How do you wanted the testing to happen? So before you wanted to test your code, do you actually set up that entire pull request flow of whenever the pull request is created, a unit testing and a functional testing is happening simultaneously there. But we actually have to check in all these angles before we proceed in DevOps. So DevOps itself is a process, the way we are thinking about a reliability and availability, serviceability in terms of infrastructure. What are we trying to say? So when I go to an interview, so my expectations is how would I actually have to focus on Azure administration and how would I'm focusing on Azure DevOps? Not really. You have to focus on some key areas where you're good at. Okay, it's good if you're carrying this knowledge, you actually get paid very higher and you are doing a very good job in terms of it. But do realize that there are separate individual teams when in terms of just planning alone. There will be Scrum Masters, Scrum team, Business Analytics team. There will be to test the code. There will be testing team to actually do a quality code check and all that. You will have a QA team to deploy it. You have a deployment team. You maintain the infrastructure. You have a different team and a monitoring team. And when you wanted to set up the recovery solution and everything, you have this architect team who come and designs and plans and executes along with the administrators and everything. So most of the work right now is lying under this primary section. So you need to be in a position to know how to monitor. So you need to know monitoring applications like Azure Monitor, application insights, container monitoring, and how do we configure alerts? What type of alerts which we can actually configure for each machine, for each type of services? When don't never just focus on a virtual machine alone. Most of the examples which we actually see in YouTube or anywhere is actually lying on a sample basis of virtual machine storage accounts. Focus on major activities like load balancers, application gateway, and network related security rules, firewall rules, DNS solutions, and all that. So, how your alert is actually in place in terms of security, how if there is any changes in the Active Directory, how are we actually getting notified? Any unauthorized user is actually accessing the unapproved access to the machine, the what do you say, specific resources, or any resources actually deletion is being performed, or machines are being stopped, or any of the requests are not being handled. How are we checking all that? How is our troubleshooting style is going on? All this are actually what we have to as an administrators be capable of it. We know to think in a holistic view that this is how everything is. But at least are we in a position someone when says us to do go and do this one? Are we in a position to go and do that stuff in Azure? Can we go and research and do it? That's what as an Azure administration has to be focused on the skill set. Now, cloud actually tries to offer this kind of solutions through different services. So we, as I mentioned, there are different services. If you want to have backend solution, You have recovery service vault. You wanted to have a replication in place of your data of a database. You need to actually set up replication in your database. If you wanted to placement of servers in a different location and all that, you can actually create a servers in different region, or you can use site replication in place to replicate all your servers in a different location. So simultaneously, when one region goes down, you have a different region. We have availability sets, availability solutions, load balancer I already mentioned, databases I already mentioned. We have already for monitoring I mentioned. For security point of view, each service have a different type. For virtual machines alone, there are almost like Azure Advisor just gives lot many security recommendations to implement. Now, when we talk about this each tools, we have to configure securities and all that. That comes under DevSecOps and everything. So this is whole and soul how the cloud is offering different solutions in terms of handling. So you have analytics, you have MLOps, you have what do you say, data analytics, and we have identity, we have monitoring in place, we have IoT stuff and everything. So these are a lot of services which actually we can include in the application and can think of utilizing that as a service to achieve end of the day a service to the customer. So this is how you have to. So if you are trying to have at least the holistic idea and everything, you are serving the purpose of a Azure, the DevOps guy and a cloud guy. So this is it, guys. You have to focus on Azure and Azure DevOps accordingly. Focus in what specific things are you aware of with services and what exactly you have done and how it has impacted holistically on the application, either from a DevOps point of view or an Azure administration point of view. You have to focus and you have to mention that content exactly in the resume accordingly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, bro.